Assassin's Creed Valhalla's third DLC, the Dawn of Ragnarok, is just around the corner, and there is a lot of info at the moment coming out thick and fast, so I'm going to walk you through 10 things I think you need to know so you can kind of decide if it's worth your time, attention, and money. So let's teleport in. So let's kick this all off with a release date. It is coming out on Thursday, March the 10th, across all major gaming platforms, and it is going to set you back a pretty penny. It's going to cost you 33 quid in the UK, $40 and euros as well, depending upon where you're based, and I know a lot of you have been asking this in previous comments on previous videos. This isn't part of the season pass, by the way. It is a separate game installment, so you will have to purchase this on top of the already purchased season pass, which is a very heavy ask for sure. Now, this DLC has been developed by Ubisoft Sophia, who were the developers behind AC Rogue and the well-received Origins DLC Curse of the Pharaoh, so I do think there is a solid team behind this one here. Additionally, you can actually start the expansion at any time from the main menu of Valhalla, boosting you to that required level of 340 to get started. So if you haven't played Valhalla in a long time but fancy dipping your toe into this expansion here, there isn't any prerequisites, barriers or restrictions you first need to complete to actually get started. I think that's a good thing. You'll also be provided with a predefined selection of gear and weapons if you do decide to boost, so you won't be running around Svartalfheim in your underpants with a plastic fork as a weapon. So they've also thought about that, and I think that is a positive there as well. Now, what is this Dawn of Ragnarok story stuff all about? Well, the story for this DLC begins in Ravensthorpe, where Eivor speaks to this here Valka of a dream he or she, depending upon who you play as, actually had. Valka then goes on to say no problem and tells Eivor to smash back another one of those weird potions to re-enter this dream world, which is when you become the All-Father Odin himself, who's actually travelled to the realm of Svartalfheim, home of the dwarves, to save his son Baldir, who's actually been captured by an invading force of Muspels from Muspelheim, which has been spearheaded by their leader Suttr, king of all Muspels. Now, the reason for their invasion is currently unknown, but Operation Rescue Baldir is a green light, and that's our current main focus in this expansion. Incidentally, if you haven't played Valhalla in ages, and just so we're all on the same page, and very briefly, Eivor is actually Odin reincarnated, Odin being a Isu leader from the past, and it's speculated that these visions are Eivor's interpretation of what has actually occurred in the past, crafted into a Norse tale, which is Eivor's way of kind of processing what has happened, as it's easier to explain the past in disguise of the cultural tales, gods, and beliefs of the current time period Eivor finds he or herself in. In any case, I am hoping for some significant Isu story exploration here. I've got my fingers very firmly crossed. But speaking of exploration, Ubisoft have said in this DLC that we're going to be picking up a solid 35 hours of gameplay from start to finish, with a map being a third the size of England itself. Now, if we are going to have a map that size, we're going to need something to travel around on, and following the trend of previous Valhalla DLCs, we will be picking up the new mount called the Gullinbursti Iron Boar, which in Norse mythology was crafted by the dwarves Sindri and Brock, and it seems that that's been gifted to Odin here in this DLC. Now, for a bit more speculative context surrounding the map, and thanks to Pedder, who has been rummaging around in the game files for us, he has found a brief outline of the Svartalfheim DLC map. Of course, this is subject to change, but there are 3 regions noted here: Golnamar, Halladin, and Vangrin, so I would expect to see these popping up on your screen come launch day. Now, something you may have heard doing the rounds at the moment, and it's Odin's Bracer, or otherwise called the mythical hugr-rip, and this is going to be playing an instrumental role in the DLC, as it's going to allow you to activate a variety of different Odin abilities and powers, and without this bracer, there's no cool lightning or raven transformation, to put it quite simply. However, before we can use these Odin abilities, we need to gather hugr, which is the new resource that can be withdrawn from specific NPCs around the game. We can also get this hugr from hugr blooms in the wild, or by sacrificing part of Odin's health at special shrines. Incidentally, these Odin powers can only be used in Svartalfheim. They will not be transferable back to England. In fact, the only thing that's going to be transferable back to England is the new armor sets you obtain in this new Ragnarok DLC, which I'm going to break down for you in just a second. Now, after you have collected this hugr from fallen enemies, you're going to be able to activate up to 2 Odin powers out of a possible 5 from the hugr-rip bracer, which can then be used for a short time. You can also upgrade the capabilities of the bracer from a dwarven blacksmith to enhance and improve these powers, but this whole mechanic, according to Ubisoft, is designed to push us to think very carefully about which power would be the best suited to overcome this gameplay challenge that we will have in front of us. This brings us quite nicely onto the Odin abilities themselves, and as mentioned, we have 5 5 to play with here. First up is the Power of the Raven, and once you've obtained hugr from the Black Ravens around Svartalfheim, you'll be able to transform into Odin's White Raven form, which allows us to freely and rapidly explore the skies. And I think what's cool about this in particular is you'll be able to choose a landing spot of your choice and then just reappear as the Allfather on the ground. I really do like this mechanic, to be honest with you. And we also have the Power of Muspelheim and the Power of Jotunheim, the former allowing us to disguise ourselves as a fire giant, enabling social stealth, which I'm going to talk about more in just a moment, and complete immunity to lava and heat damage. The latter, on the other hand, allows us the ability to disguise ourselves as a frost giant and opens up a world of limited traversal as we can teleport to special targets with our bow, overcoming environmental barriers as well as killing enemies with it, which I also think is pretty cool. Next up is the Power of Winter, where Odin will be able to empower his weapons with ice, allowing us to freeze and shatter enemies, which is very brutal. And on top of all that, Odin wouldn't be called the god of the dead if he couldn't resurrect the dead himself, which is what we can also do here as well. It's called Power of Rebirth, which raises everybody you've killed in a specific area, and I think this is a very interesting looking mechanic, and I'm intrigued to see how many we can raise in one go. And by the way, if you have learned anything new or enjoyed the video so far, and only if you wouldn't mind, a very swift like down below really does help me out, so thank you very much. Now let's break down some new weapons coming to the game, and we know of 4 Atgeirs so far, which are the new weapon classes officially confirmed by Ubisoft. It's a polearm that was widely used in the Viking Age, particularly in the British Isles and Iceland in that time period, and thanks to Petter and Ibsarp, who spend a lot of time in the game files, they found all of them for us to have a look at. We have the Muspel Spark and the Fiery War Song, which are both very provocative looking weapons, as well as Odin's personal Atgeir called the Impaler. This is the one seen in the cinematic trailers, by the way. And our 4th is Thorgrim's Dying Breath, which is a dwarven styled Atgeir weapon. We also have other weapons, Fenrir's Incisor, which is a new dagger said to be crafted by a tooth of Fenrir, as well as a Jotnar Cleaver, which is a very promising performing one-handed axe originating from the elite warriors of Jotunheim. On top of that, we have Ivaldi's Hammer, which is what it says on the tin, to be honest with you, a very famous hammer crafted by the legendary dwarf Ivaldi himself, and Calder's Fury, which is a Dane axe built by a Muspel scientist who dabbles in the dark arts. And finally, we pick up the Aesir Eye. It's a bow built for Odin and treasured by the Valkyries. I think this is a fantastic looking hunter's bow, and I can't wait to equip this one. Now, since we're chinwagging about weapons, let's break down the new armor sets. There's 5 in this DLC, and I've actually broken down each one with a fine-tooth comb in separate videos, including the weapons we just mentioned. So let's do a quick rundown here, as your time is important to me, and I'll link the playlist, which includes each armor set video at the end of this one if you're after more of a deep dive. So first of all, we've got the Allfather set. It is a great looking armor set and worthy of the God of Gods, in my opinion. I love the color balance and raven feathers on the shoulder in particular. That's top marks from me. We also have the Fire Giant armor set, which is of course taking inspiration from the Muspels. It's a bold outfit choice, but I think I do prefer the Jotun armor set instead. It's been described as a patchwork of clothing scavenged from different battlefields, and the helmet is a standout feature here for sure. We also couldn't be in the realm of the dwarves without any dwarven armor sets, and we have 2 here thankfully. We've got the Dwarven Blacksmith armor set, which I think is my favorite out of all of them, to be honest with you. I get big Lord of the Rings vibes from this one, especially with that helm. And we also have the Hreidmar's Cursed armor set, which can actually be purified by socketing specific runes in it, which then transforms into the Blessed Hreidmar armor set. And Hreidmar, and I keep saying that name a lot, but the namesake is after an old dwarven king who ruled over the dwarves at the beginning of time. There's also a new divine level quality for upgrading these armor sets from mythical. They will indeed change appearance, which you can see here thanks to Ibsarp, who has managed to do so in the game files. And I just want to say that these armor sets, according to Ubisoft, will be transferable back to England, so they're not just locked in Svartalfheim, and I think that is good news. Now, a big addition arriving in this DLC is the Valkyrie fight arena run by Kara. This arena is a place for Odin to reenact tales of the past victories he has accomplished by taking on waves and waves of enemies and bosses. For even greater rewards during these arena trials, Odin can boost or brag to Kara about each story, and this is going to provoke a reaction from Kara, who will make the challenges harder, such as including a melee trade-off where every consecutive melee attack does less damage until it's broken up by a ranged attack or an ability, or alternatively, while an enhanced enemy has their melee damage increased, after we kill them, you could then use the Power of Rebirth ability and get them on your side going forward to make the challenges easier. Lots of cool stuff and different tactics to try out here, and Petter has also found Redder contracts referenced here in the Valkyrie arena, so do expect a lot more challenges based there going forward in this game. And just for your own knowledge, the Allfather armor set is is actually earned by partaking in this game mechanic. So if you do want Odin's armor set, make sure you beeline to this arena to get it early in the game. Now this topic brings us quite nicely onto the new roaming bosses and enemies. There's quite a few to pick apart here, but let's first start with the Flame Keepers, who can revive fallen enemies. So if you're not quick to focus your attention on them first, there is a potential for prolonged combat fights, which to be honest hasn't really been an issue or a problem in Valhalla so far, so I'm interested to see how that plays out. We also get a few Suicide Squad muscles who will rush towards us and explode if we don't deal with them quickly. And incidentally, Jose Ariza, post-launch producer of Valhalla, did say to Your Raptor in an interview last year, and I will link his video of course in the description, well worth a watch if you haven't seen it, that roaming bosses will be returning, and thanks to Peda in the game files again, we do have some indication on whom they will be. We have Angrboda's Wolfpack, and you may have noticed Angrboda making a sneaky cameo in the gameplay trailer, by the way, so watch out for that. But I think this makes even more sense because there's going to be 5 of these Angrboda Wolfpack enemies that are laying low in Svartalfheim, and we can find out their locations by rescuing dwarves for intel reports, which will subsequently reveal their locations. We also have Sinmara's Champions, or Satunga's Outriders, who are roaming enemies, specifically hunting Odin, and will drop a piece of the Jotun armor set each. And finally, we also have the Dwarven Opportunists, who will drop treasure intel about very valuable wealth locations on the map, and I think all of this variety does sound encouraging, and I'm keen to get stuck in to try it. Now let's have a quick chat about stealth, because I think it's fair to say it's been lacking in this AC installment, and as we've discussed earlier on with the Odin abilities, it does seem that we are adding a few extra stealth mechanics to our very limited stealth utility belt. We've got the power of Muspelheim and Jotunheim, which are a good step forwards, all things considered, and what I mean by that is they could have completely ignored stealth in this expansion, considering its fantasy aspect. So any sort of scenario where I'm able to social stealth through an area and figure out my next move is a bonus in my eyes. I just hope it's better than that Francia travel cloak, which if you didn't play Siege of Paris was a stealth cloak that did not work at all. It was absolute trash, so fingers crossed for an improvement here. We also have our Raven Form ability, which we can use to assassinate enemies from the sky, which really changes the game from a traversal standpoint, in my opinion. I'm very much intrigued to see how this impacts certain missions and if it makes certain areas completely redundant, because in theory you could fly over all of the NPCs in your way and just strike the target and have the mission done and dusted in no time. Either way, from what has been shown so far, I think there's been some cool additions to try out here. I just hope it's robust and it works. And I just want to say a big thanks to all the Reloads researchers who helped put this video together in our Discord community, and my additional thanks to you reloaders who support the channel with your own hard-earned cash. It really does mean a huge amount to me, and I genuinely appreciate it, so thank you very much. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers for stopping by. Lots more Ragnarok content to come, so do consider subscribing if you've enjoyed this video, and as usual, coffee's on me.